Hello and welcome to I Am Geek, and this is episode 78. We're back for a very special episode. I'm joined by my brother Chris and our good pal Katrin. And Chris has opened up his animator's vault, as we call it here on I Am Geek, and he's pulled out another. This is like a superstar. I'm a little taken aback by looking at this guy's resume, but I'll let Chris introduce his latest member to the vault.
Yeah. I got a few people in there. This guy, he's great. He's wonderful. One of the most just enjoyable people that I've ever met. Mr. Stephen Buckley.
Thank you for that kind intro.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Me and Buck met back working at Rhythm and Hues. I believe on Yogi Bear was the first thing that we worked on together. And yeah, we shared a room together, and he's a hoot. Love him.
Older person.
He's a hoot.
Older. He's a hoot.
Owl?
An older guy.
He's an older gentleman.
So when you shared a room together, is this an office?
It's a work room. Yeah, it's an office.
Okay. I didn't know what the work.
It was an office.
The living
office that I think was a closet before it was an office because the air conditioning didn't work very well in there, so it was always hot.
Huh.
But
just dreadful.
Yes. But we made it fun.
Okay.
Well, Steven, or what do you call you, Steven, or
You can call me Buck.
Buck?
Buck.
Okay, Buck. So
Yeah.
Chris said that, hey, I got this guy, this friend of mine, we can have him on. He worked on Nightmare Before Christmas. We got the 25th anniversary coming up. We should have him on. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And he didn't inform me about the superstar that you are, because I went to your IMDb page. And I'm a little, taken aback. This may be one of the episodes where I just sit here in awe of all that you've done. You've worked on Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Deadpool, Maleficent, X-Men Days of Future Past, Dinosaur, Nightmare Before Christmas, all the three Lord of the Rings movies, which I'm just like amazed by. So many more. Spider-Man 3, even G-Force with the talking hamster.
Yeah, and James the Giant Peach.
James the Giant Peach. So many. This is, I posted, I think on our Twitter that we were having you on, and had a link to your IMDb page, and people were just like, "This guy is amazing."
Thanks. No, I'm just an old guy. I'm just way older than you kids, and that's why I have all those films. That's all.
If you could see the room that I'm in right now, I know you can't because you're not on video with us, but I have like a whole shelf that's dedicated to Lord of the Rings.
I loved Lord of the Rings. I'm glad that you dug that, because we were working really hard on Gollum and Smeagol till like 3 and 4 in the morning. It was very gothic, the work ethic, but people love those movies, and it was worth it. Like Nightmare Before Christmas, when you put that much effort and blood into those films, and you hear reactions like that, it's we didn't phone it in.
That is so cool. I mean, I'm sure you have so many stories that we could sit here all night and listen to you just tell stories of all of that. But you can. I mean, I'll sit here and listen.
Well, no, I just think that New Zealand itself, like when they struck with New Zealand after like Xena and Peter Jackson landed those 3 tuna, I just think that shooting in New Zealand with the green grass and all the rocky parts where Gollum was from, the textures of New Zealand and everything, it was just like the lightning in a bottle. It's all just lined up. So I think that was really it, because people have done those Lord of the Rings films, but he nailed it by filming them all at the same time. Like when Frodo came back when Elijah and the Hobbits came back for reshoots, like a couple of years later, they were young, beautiful kids, but you could see that they were older. But, we were shooting out of sequence, so you couldn't see when they came back for the reshoots. But when they did look different,
Yeah. That's so cool. Now, I was done for our listeners on your, and this, Chris could probably answer this too. On some of your films, it says your animation department, and some of it says that your visual effects. Could you tell us sort of the difference of what that is so our listeners will know?
Well, I think what's sad is the animation and people in the animation industry, they don't really have a cohesive bond where they have like a voice. So we're all still animators, but they don't want to call us animators on these visual effects films. So they call you visual effects artists, but we're still animating Thanos' face and Thanos walking and destroying things, and so they just won't call you what you are, which is really character animators,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
so it's weird.
A lot of those they're just. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. It's just weird the way it's listed. That's all. I couldn't figure that one out either.
Yeah, a lot of them, like, especially when they're using mocap, they love to like just promote that and just like, this is motion capture, like this is state of the art stuff. Like these actors, they just go in and do it, and boom, you got a character right there. Barely have to touch it, type thing. And so yeah, they love to promote their technology, basically.
They do.
That helps get them money.
It's true. So that's why they have those weird little titles, because I've been through that and I'm like, what is this? You couldn't see them all listed like they should have been. They're all in phylums and things. It's strange, but it's just one of those things. We're all animators. We're all character animators.
Yeah. Well, cool.
And speaking of which, the person you're sitting with, Chris Street, he taught me practically everything when I was at Rhythm of Hughes. That guy is a legend. His shots were amazing, and I always lean on young people because the computer blows my mind, and he was an absolute angel. So remember that.
Oh, angel.
It's true. I'm on the podcast. I'm saying it on the podcast.
It must be true then if it's on the podcast.
Well, it's funny when I tell people that my brother's an animator, and they're like, okay. And then I tell them what movies he's worked on, and they're like, wait a second. So it's like his name in the credits? I'm like, yeah. You have to wait around till the end, but
I know.
It's in there. And he goes,
He's
that's
in there.
amazing.
Yeah, it's true. He did beautiful work at Rhythm. Those were some rough days.
But you handled yourself quite well.
Thank you. Life is good.
Great. Yeah, it was. You did some good stuff there. There was some fun yogi stuff.
Thanks for the help. You got to learn all these new software packages when you go to these new companies. And you get destroyed.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Every place has something different, and they do it different ways.
Yeah.
And, whew,
it's already
it wears you out.
After doing stop motion with 10 fingers, it's already like animating with chopsticks. Using the mouse. It's just mean spirited. The whole thing.
That is true.
So how did you? Let's back up. How did you begin this journey? How did you get started in this field, and what made you or pushed you in this direction?
Well, as a young kid, because I'm 57, right? So I was born during like the King Kong, Mighty Joe Young stuff. So I was a little geeky kid. I always thought I was really cool, but I was a geek. And so I would see like Mighty Joe Young. I think the thing that rocked my world was Harryhausen's Cyclops character. When that thing came out of the cave and was like making that sound, and I knew he wasn't claymation. I could see that what the skin was, but I didn't know what he was. I think just seeing that, knowing that it was moved by hands, it rocked my world. And so I was a sculptor, and so I sculpted with clay and did the pottery thing. My mother dropped me in art classes. And my mother was a realtor, so she would always shine me and be showing houses. So I would stick around at the art studio and sculpt till like 8 or 9 till she picked me up. So then when I got older, I tore my knee up skiing in Colorado, and I was on crutches. So I said, I'm going to make one of those clay movies. So this is the 80s when they were calling it claymation, during the, Will Vinton's Raisins and stuff. Yeah. So I did a little claymation movie called The Only, my interpretation of the meteor hitting Earth and, everyone getting destroyed except for a T-Rex and his nemesis, his baby, which is a baby, Triceratops. So I did that movie, while I was with all my savings from waiting tables because I couldn't walk, I was on these crutches. And so I did this movie. In my apartment in the 80s, like in 86, and then put it in film festivals and stuff. And the Art Clokey, the Gumby Pokey creator, saw it at the Roxy Film Festival in San Fran, like in 1987. And so he called me up on the phone one day at our apartment, and it was really fortuitous because I just quit my job waiting tables because I just couldn't do it anymore, I mean, my hair was falling out and I'm bald, like waiting tables. So I was pretty bummed, but I knew I didn't. So anyway, I quit my job. And he called, and it was like getting a call from Spielberg, even though he's just the claymation guy. It was still like getting, so my wife was jumping up and down on the bed. It was a really big deal. So I went out and met the cloakster. That's what I nicknamed him. And he was an old guy with blue eyes, really cool old claymation guy. And I brought my wife out there on the motorcycle. And he was a ladies' man, right? So brilliantly, I brought my wife to the interview, right? Because she's quite the asset. And so he's quite the ladies' man. So next thing I knew, they're driving off in his Pontiac, and I'm following them on the motorcycle. So I got hired. I got hired and started working at Gumby, doing claymation, doing Gumby and Pokey for, the TV show in the 80s. And then the Gumby people, should I just keep rolling on like
going.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after after years of being at Gumby, everyone got really, really good, doing claymation 9 to 5 every day. So everyone became kind of like a master claymation person because we were like putting strings underneath Gumby's arms and making him jump. Today they've got these rigs like at Leica where you just put the rig in the back and they paint it out later. But these are the days when we had to put strings, fishing wire underneath Gumby and Pokey's armpits, and then get a black Sharpie and blacken them out so the light wouldn't pick up the strings on film. And it was insane. Someone would open the door and they would blow and you have to settle it with a feather. So these were those days. So we all got really good at like renegade filmmaking and, strings and, as the Kiwis would say, number 9 wire. But anyway, so we all got really clever doing it that. And so then we all kind of moved into commercials. We were doing the little Ritz commercials, the Hershey's Kiss with almonds over at Colossal. And then Tim Burton gave the green light to Henry Selick. And they started doing Nightmare Before Christmas in the south of Market. That's really funky. Of course, San Francisco now is worth $1 trillion, but this was like the funky neighborhood of San Francisco, very dodgy at night. So that's where Skellington Studios was located. And so all of us that came from Gumby went to Nightmare Before Christmas. And since it was like second nature to us, these big new puppets that were all like, $20,000 each, these beautiful armature puppets, the animation was still impossible, but we were all pretty seasoned,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So then we rocked on Nightmare. That was like a 3-year project. And all the little babies that were born on Nightmare Before Christmas, where they put all their names, because it was a 3-year project, they put all their names on the Christmas list. And my daughter, Allison, is like the 4th little baby. So like when Jack's in the sky, you see her little name. So it's just great lore.
Cool.
So that movie,
Awesome.
came out and, that was like stop motion was very, very hot, because it was #1 at the box office and it was ridiculous because they were puppets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the time when we were making it, Disney was uncomfortable, because like Santa Claus was getting his butt kicked and getting thrown all around. And so, they didn't have their name on it in the beginning, Disney, because they thought this is really adult fare.
Yeah.
We're going to throw it to Touchstone. So originally it was Touchstone. But then when the film became like a cult classic and they turned Disneyland into Halloween Town and stuff, it's like, now they do the guy that smiles, they have the guy that does the Disney voice that they make him smile when he does it for a limited time only. So that's like, they got that guy, like you're really, really pumping that movie now, from Walt Disney feature animation Nightmare, So it was great that it really, really splashed and we were all very, very surprised. But the thing about it was that even though we just finished it and it was an incredible masterpiece, Jurassic Park came out like 20 minutes later and we were all sitting there with our tools and our surface gauges and the glory lasted about 9.5 minutes or like half a lunch.
Oh.
Everyone's like, have you seen Jurassic Park? There's dinosaurs in the rain. It's over. So... we all of us stop motion guys, not all of us, but people like me had to learn the computer. And that was really, 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 really difficult. But I finally got through it, But I still have to have young guys help me where stuff is because I just wasn't raised on a computer. I didn't even play pinball machines,
Yeah.
So then Nightmare ended, and then I struggled on to another little TV show. It was called Things That Go Bump, and I started up, and then James the Giant Peach started up, and we went on to work onto that for, a couple of years, and they mixed live action with that, which I wish the beginning was stop motion, but like stop motion
Mm-hmm.
black and white, like Tim Burton's Vincent. But that was like a different kind of film, you know. But it was critically acclaimed, and the 25-year anniversary of that film will be up in 3 years, which is crazy. So now that I'm
Yeah.
old, all I do is go to 25-year
Yeah.
anniversary parties.
There you go. You just go to parties when you're older. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's what you do. You just
That's
walk around.
awesome.
So Peach was beautiful, and we loved Peach, and you know, very, very beautiful film, beautiful animation. And then you know, because I'm working with all these master animators. I mean, the guys that I was working under, like, here's a perfect example. If there's any animators out there, or any, you know, cinephiles or geeks or whatever, there's a guy named Trey Thomas who was the top animator on Nightmare Before Christmas. And he just had it like a McCartney, or, well, there were a couple of guys. They were like the Fabulous Four or the Magnificent Seven on Nightmare, and I wasn't one of them. but I was running, you know, I was running at the end of the pack, you know, cramping up, but, you know, keeping pace, but not, you know. And I was happy to be in that. I was happy to be in that race too, I can tell you. But anyway, this guy's name was Trey Thomas, and he did beautiful stuff. And the scene that I want you to look at that Trey Thomas did was when Lock, Shock, and Barrel kidnap Santa Claus, and they're walking through the gate, and they get to the gate, and the gate opens up, and Santa Claus starts saying some stuff through the bag, like, you know, haven't you heard of goodwill towards children, or something like that. Look at the little Pee Wee Herman character's Devil's Tail. He does this twirly tail animation that absolutely boggles my mind, and I do this stuff, you know. So he was doing stuff like he was doing stuff like that, and he animated all of Sally's songs right into the story. It was the most painful thing that ever happened to me in the history of animation, and I should tell you this story because it's hysterical. But they call me up. They call me up because, you know, I was the last one to get hired on Nightmare, you know, because they had their Magnificent Seven. So I get called up to finish Trey Thomas's Sally's song. It's just the musicians. It's just the musicians looking up their little song, and like one has a big accordion that's a fish, and the other one's playing a big stand-up bass, and the other one is a sax player. So there's these three little musicians that are just sitting there, and they call me up and they say, "Do you want to come in and finish Trey Thomas's song? Trey's got to move on over to, you know, he's got to move over to Sally and the evil scientist." And I'm like, well, why doesn't Trey just finish his song to finish his song? Well, you know, they're like, look, it's a scheduling thing. Do you want to do it or not? I was like, well, yeah, I'll come in and do it. So I went in there to do it. And I didn't know what I was doing because I hadn't worked there yet, you know. And so these puppets were very, very strange. So the middle puppet had this accordion. And as I'm animating, we only had these things called frame grabbers, which only grabbed 3 frames, 2 stored and 1 live. So you could see if stuff was going smoothly, but you couldn't see the pace of the shot or anything like they have now. So you only had 3 scenes. So all you heard on all these sets were because you're trying to click it real fast, trying to get a rhythm, you know. So that's all we had. To make long story short, I accidentally started touching the accordion, the little spongy thing in the middle, and so I worked till like 5 in the morning, you know, because it was so difficult. You know, the sets were huge, trying to navigate my big fat stomach through the set. So I finished my shot, and when I finished it, the thing about animation that humbles you is that when you think that you've done a really, really good job, you're toast because it's going to be crap. and so after I left there on my motorcycle, like at 5:30, I was like thinking, I've made it. I'm a Disney animator. I'm crushing the game. And so I get home and I'm waiting for like the accolades the next day, and no call comes in. And so I call the studio. I go, "Hey man, what's going on? Did you do the morning run with the shot?" They're like, yeah, we did. I was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" They go, they use this word. They go, "Well, there was a lot of chatter on the accordion." I go, "What?" Well, because I was touching the thing, so it was twitching all over the scene, and it was supposed to be like mellow, finishing Trey Thomas's, you know, brilliantly animated song. And so I was like, oh, I go, "Well, what does that mean?" They go, "Well, we can't use it." I was like, and they go, and at this point, I'd worked till 6 in the morning. I was chugging Excedrin, and I was just trying to get through the shot. So I'm home and my body's like throbbing, and I'm pretty young. I'm like in my early 30s, right? But my body's just throbbing from the trauma of animating those 3 musicians. And they go, "Do you want They go, do you want to come back in and reshoot it? And I said, no, thank you. So I hung up, and I didn't know what to do, so I got little babies at home. I don't know what to do. So I go out in the garden and I start to do build a sandbox like a crazy geek, right? So all of a sudden my wife pulls open the window and she says, "Are you going to run from this? Or are you going to hit it head on?" And I began this huge argument because, of course, I told her, "You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like." And so she talked me back into it. And so then I called them back up a couple hours later and I said, "All right, yeah, I can come back in and give that a try." They go, "All right, the set's up for you, and Trey Thomas is going to talk to you about what and what not to do." And so I went in there, and Trey Thomas goes, "Buckley, were you touching the accordion?" And of course, I didn't lie. I go, I did. He goes, "Don't touch the accordion." He goes, "Every time you animate the accordion player, grab each wrist at the same point and either pull or push. Never, ever touch the accordion. Let it do what it does, but animate the wrists only." And so he told me that. I went in, I nailed the shot, and they hired me. So that was like my most traumatic time, like going back in. And when I went back in for the reshoot and I was back on that set the next day with my body still throbbing from no sleep and Excedrin, I'm like, what am I doing? I was shaking. But I got that off, and that was the most challenging part of the stop motion, because at Nightmare Before Christmas, if you did like 3 bad shots in a row, you were out, because they had, they had like 12 masters that weren't getting reshoots. They were nailing every shot,
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So very, very humbling, my start there. So that was the stop motion end of the journey right there. After that, after Peach wrapped up, it kind of dried up. It's only like Tim Burton and now Wes Anderson that are doing those films, and Leica.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended the stop motion thing, and it was very difficult for all of us because we were all pretty seasoned at stop motion, but we had to go learn how to animate with chopsticks on the computer on a mouse,
And it's crazy though, because I mean it's 25 years later, and Nightmare Before Christmas is probably as popular or more as it's ever been, and it's just crazy how
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I mean it's
and the animation still holds up. I mean, it's still good. I mean, you look at like some of the older movies and stuff. I mean, they're good. I mean, they're still good, but I mean, like everything has progressed so much that now it's just like you can't tell the difference between like 3D and stop motion and some of the stuff. But like Nightmare Before Christmas it's still beautifully animated. The songs are great. The story is great. It's probably one of my favorite movies.
I love it too. I just saw it at Lucas's Skywalker Ranch, and it really is. I wanted to do like a Rocky Horror Picture thing where every single scene that comes up, you yell like 3 reshoots. I remember you scratched your car. Just be yelling every scene, because I know every time I see every scene, I know who got in a fight with their girlfriend. We had pizza that night. Someone had the gall to order a filet mignon. Those kind of things. The memories are fantastic.
So
no, I know. I'm glad that film has lasted because people put their blood into it. I mean, we were out on those stages. I swear to God, we were trembling.
So how was Skywalker Ranch? Because
it is absolutely magnificent, and it took me 57 years to see it. Of course, I lived in Northern California, but I never had the gall or the gumption to like drive through there and try to get a tour. But it's just George Lucas is like Howard Hughes. He's a major mogul. He's one of the greatest film moguls, and he's changed like millions of people's lives. When I see how many of my friends post like George Lucas, Star Wars stuff, it has made their lives happy. So that guy, I just walked around in awe. Like, this guy is a mogul, like the last mogul of all moguls. It was beautiful. It was so windy, the road in there. It took forever that I thought if you work there, it takes you like 45 minutes, 50 minutes to get in there because it's so gorgeous. Anyway, very beautiful, very, very nice setting. The director of photography, who's like a mastermind, like a Stephen Hawking's type mind, his name is Pete Kazacek, and he was the one that made all those camera moves and the motion cat. He was in charge of all the camera crews. So he's got early onset Alzheimer's. So the VES, the Visual Effects Society, threw that at Lucas, so that it was really special. And he was there, so that was really, really significant.
Oh, wow.
Lovely though, lovely night, and no one recognized me because I had like brown hair and I was going bald. I had a pretty big hell ring, but I still had that little scallion of hair in the front, and it was brown. And now I'm just like a bald guy with like a Popeye beard, and no one recognized me. People were walking by me. I had to introduce myself to people. Ridiculous.
I don't know how anybody could forget you, Buck.
Well, you're very sweet to say so, but
that.
it's like the white beard threw them off. Like no one else has white hair. Like they've got like a touch of gray. But I look like Popeye's father, out on a boat.
That's funny. You just have the
really
corncob pipe sitting there.
Yeah. I could be for Halloween. All I got to do is get a corncob pipe and a hat for like $8, and I'm set.
Nice.
So after you learned the computers, for lack of a better term, how did that change you? How did that sort of diving into basically this new world of animation?
Well, luckily for me at Disney, Dinosaur, that was a very, very rich time at Disney where they had just made a bundle on The Lion King. So the orientation, they had those like brilliant opera singers singing like from Hercules.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. And so this thing, we're doing mime today. Don't sit on your desk. We're going to the zoo to draw, the ostrich feet as they release from the ground. We're studying rhino skin today. We're looking at elephant folds. It was ridiculous. So they were really, really great. But luckily I had young guys there like Chris Street that saw me struggling on the computer. I had 3 kids and I got an ulcer because, I got there and I was just struggling until finally, of course, Trey Thomas, who transitioned into CG, said to me, Buckley, just animate straight ahead on 5s, like in stop motion. Forget this, cycle crap. Straight ahead is what you know. Do it. And so then that's how I learned at the end of Walt Disney's Dinosaur how to animate. Is that blocking on 5s in stop motion. And so then I just started doing on 5s on the computer and then cleaning that up so that everything was clean and it was on 5s. And then I would move it to 3s and keep some on 5s and that kind of stuff. And that is how I learned to work on the computer, and I survived, and my ulcer went away. So it was a tough learning curve. And then right when I learned, Lord of the Rings came to town, like in '99, like in the late '90s. And I hadn't read the Lord of the Rings because, I was raised in upstate New York, and they were making us read like Edgar Allan Poe and stuff. And I didn't read Lord of the Rings, but so I interviewed those guys downtown LA, and I was like, I was trying to be honest. I was like, I've not read Lord of the Rings. Can I still come down there and work? They go, she can. So they hired me, and it was unbelievable. So I was the first animator hired in '99. So I ripped the kids out of their schools, and we left Santa Monica, which was absolutely, great. So we went down to New Zealand and we lived down there for 7 years. And, it was magical because the Kiwis are lovely people, like they were very, very people down. It was right before Pete was big, because he would still come to our desks and do walkthrough like that and then after that, he just became, huge, but New Zealand was probably the seven best years of our lives. That place was just stunning.
Oh, wow. So what all did you?
Looks
what all did you do on? Did you have any like key spots in Lord of the Rings that you want to sort of go through, or what were your favorite things to animate?
I did a lot of Gollum and Smeagol.
Cool.
I like doing Gollum. I like doing Gollum when he was catching the fish and singing and smacking it really hard on the rock. The pool is nice and cool, so juicy, sweet. That little sequence I did in there, and then I like doing did that, and then I did some other stuff where he's talking to Gollum in the reflections. So my buddy was animating Gollum, because when we animated Gollum, we made him with beadier eyes and tighter lips, and then when we went to Smeagol, we puffed out his lips and made his pupils bigger. So Smeagol looked more like a little boy, and then Gollum looked like a really mean, goblin, Wow. And so I did some stuff there where he's leading him up to Shelob's lair, where he's like, we lead them to the windy stair, and a bunch of stuff, and the 2 towers with Gollum. So pretty much I was doing Gollum while Sam and Frodo climbed, Mordor. So I was like on that journey with them, which is, it seems like in all these films that I do, all these characters, all they ever do are climb up these incredible mountains and something gnarly happens. And then there's like a big, like, talk about it, like down below, like, whoa, that was some mountain. It seems like all these films. So, it's very similar. They're very similar. But I love doing those. I did mainly, I did go out here to the Eagle and the trolls attacking and Gollum and Schmeagol and a little bit of Treebeard, But yeah, it was just great being down there because, living right next door to us was Sir Ian McKellen. So like one night we'd be cooking and Deborah would go, kids, go next door to Ian's and get salt. So they'd go to Ian's house. Who lived next door, and he'd be over there barefoot with some friends. And he's in incredible shape too. So he's only like 60 at the time. Still older than I am now, which is amazing. And the kids came back with like this huge salt container, that said like, good taste is hard to find in people, something like that. Sir Ian, and he signed the salt, and so we never used it. The thing's full of salt, but we're like, we didn't want anyone to smudge the little writing or anything, and we laughed. And so that was like New Zealand, like we'd be on the front of our house, and our little girl Allie would be at the end of a dock, and we'd see some orcas, and we'd say, Allie, look, there's orcas. And they came really close to the dock, and one of them sprayed the mist all over her. She goes, it stinks. So I mean, it was insane. And then we had all these little penguins, these little blue penguins that used to they were down there because your next neighbor is Antarctica, right? So it's not that outrageous that there's penguins there because it's freezing in New Zealand. The water is like ice. So we had these little penguins that always crossed. So like when you're walking from white, trembling, from animating Gollum, trembling to like, you'd be walking down like a little path, like at 9:45, 10 o'clock at night, and coming up the path with a mouthful of fish is some little fat blue penguin, because they go like a couple hundred yards up, so they'd pass you on the footpath. You're like, oh my God, this is fantastic, New Zealand. So, just a crazy, crazy place. But yeah, I've got some great stories, but I don't think we've got time for that. But my God, we had a great time down there. It's great. So then, that was, we're getting ready to leave, because the Americans, what happens at Wellington, New Zealand is it's very windy. And so it's not Chicago windy. It's windy like you open your car door at a gas station and it gets blown the other way, denting the front panel of the car windy.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
That's really, really windy, like 70. So that's what happened to my car door one night. I had a nice little Honda Accord. So it just went and blew the other way. And I was like, that's some strong wind. That's some strong wind. So Lord of the Rings was wrapping up. It was very emotional. The little Frodo goes to the Grey Havens to die. And so it was just like the end of a journey. It was fantastic. We had finished the 3. And just as we're getting ready to finish, Deborah starts packing and says, we got to get out of here. It's been great. They're like, we are doing King Kong. So, of course, being the ultimate geek, I turned to her and said, we cannot leave. This is my life. She goes, who cares about King Kong? I said, I do. So, I kept them there the extra, 2 years for King Kong. And, of course, I loved that because I thought that, I thought it was a little long like everybody. But I loved that Peter Jackson, who loved it so much, said, I'm going to make it 3 hours and 7. How's that sound? And they all said, oh, we're not going to argue with you. That sounds good. We're not arguing with you. So they didn't. And that was very enjoyable. And so during that filming of King Kong, I'm a New Yorker, so there were a lot of Kiwis down there, and I'm like, well, they really need a New Yorker in this film. So I heard that Elijah Wood, when he wanted to get the role of Frodo, I heard that he sent a little tape to Pete and Fran Jackson, the directors of Lord of the Rings. That's there in case people I'm dropping. So he sent them like a little film of him in the woods, being Frodo essentially. And so I said, I'm gonna do that for King Kong, I'm gonna send them a black and white little movie of me as an obnoxious photographer who upsets Kong, and maybe I'll get a cameo. And so I spent a fortune and got the old clothes and the old camera with the flash, and my buddy cut me into the old black and white footage. And so I shot a little scene of me going, hey, Denham, how about a picture of you and the girl? Talking all over New York. And so I dropped that in their mailbox, and Anyway, lo and behold, they gave me a role as the cowardly cabbie, of Adrian Brody's cab driver.
Yeah.
So, once I got to be in the movie with Adrian, it was just, my head was in a cloud. It was just like, Peter Jackson just let me do it all. It was fantastic. And the funny thing was that when I got on the set, there was like 50 people there. It was a really hot day, and this woman's standing there with an umbrella over Peter. He's just grown to these unbelievable lengths, right? And so we're there, and I'm so nervous. I'm about to pass out. So I'm trying to act cool, like, yeah, I deserve to be in this movie with Adrian Brody, who just won an Oscar with Roman Polanski. Yeah, I deserve to be here. So I'm sitting in the car, and so Pete comes up to me and he goes, "Okay, Buck, what's your line? What's your line here?" And I looked at him, and I was so nervous, I just shut down and I just froze. I froze and just turned to him and said, "Yeah," and he just looked at me and dipped his glasses like, "Is this guy for real?" And I was just so nervous. And so that was the whole New Zealand thing. We finished up Kong, and then it was time to go. Because I think the wind down there just drives people insane. I was willing to stay forever down there. So one time my wife turned to me, she goes, "You mean you're settling for this wind, tin roofs, and meat pies?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is great." But she's an American, of course, like me, and she wanted to get the kids back. So we moved back for Spider-Man 3. Sam Raimi was doing Spider-Man 3. And so Sony moved us back, and we went back for that adventure. And we decided to raise the kids in Malibu, and I worked on Spider-Man 3, which was great fun. I mean, it was a little bit too many characters in that film, kind of like there were kind of too many songs in Nightmare, But of course, anyway, there's a couple too many songs, but no, Spider-Man 3 was a great vibe, and I didn't realize how lucky we were to be in California. I took it all for granted. Because there's not much going on in California anymore, and it's quite the place.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, pretty much everything's gone up to Canada, where you're at now. You're up in
that's where I came to work, is up here. And so that whenever I go back to Los Angeles to visit and I see how beautiful it is, like you're out at Chipotle or you're at a movie, I'm like, I just keep yelling, "America, America!" And I get mad at everybody for living there because they don't know how good they've got it, Why do you keep yelling that? I go, "It's amazing here." So it's amazing. Everything seems so rich when I go back there. I just can't believe how good we had it, Yeah, but life is beautiful. Canada, Vancouver's wonderful. Great people, just like the Kiwis,
Yeah. So how was it? I mean, how was it working on Infinity War? Like, was it?
I loved it.
How much of the story did you get to know when you were making the actual film?
Very, very, very little, because everyone's got a big yapper,
Yeah.
And they only tell you what they want you to or need you to know. And I think there's a lot of different, they have a lot of good misinformation going. So that way people don't ruin stuff, because they're trying to preserve this magical thing they're doing, which are these these films that are huge events, like everyone saw Infinity War, and it was just so great. I haven't had that feeling since Nightmare. Like 25 years it's taken to repeat the feeling of like people have actually gone to see it. Like, "Yeah, I saw that movie." You went and saw it? And Deadpool too. Deadpool was a slick, like it almost seemed like a Kickstarter film, and that was a amazing, low budget. But I thought the first one had like a lot of heart. But no, the feeling that we got after Avengers is just. We don't care about the box office gross. It's just how good. Like, we heard that other studios were talking about Thanos, and then I ran into a couple of animators that are like, like your level, like Chris Street level, like master animators, and they were great guys. They were like supervisors at other studios, and we ran into them, and they're like big heavy hitters, right? A-listers. And they stopped. We started chewing, chopping it up, talking, and they're like, "Did you guys do Thanos?" And so the respect was just, it felt so great. It's like, yeah, we did. Those shots, like, it's so hard getting approvals, so hard. When you got a Thanos approval shot of him talking, it was like he just won the lottery, like stop motion, like a miracle, just a miracle.
That's so cool that you worked on Thanos. I mean,
that Josh Brolin is he's a phenomenal talent.
yeah.
Oh, he's great. Yeah,
He's just phenomenal. He's phenomenal. His voice is like I loved George Clooney's voice in Fantastic Mr. Fox. When you hear it talking to Meryl Streep, it's just so. And the cadence of Brolin's voice is just perfect. He's just the best.
Yeah, like I really wanted him to be Batman. I was like, he needs to be Batman.
He would have been good. He would have been good as that. Mm-hmm. He's doing so much, so.
Yeah. That was before he was Thanos and stuff. I was like, man, this guy needs to be Batman one day. And then then he got cast as Thanos, and I was like, well, that works too.
that actually rivals the old Batmanster.
Yeah, but it was, Infinity War, like you were talking about. When I saw the movie, the people that I was sitting beside, complete strangers, like, at the moments at the end of the movie, like they started like crying and weeping and like they go, I can't believe they're doing this to our heroes, and
I know.
And I just sort of like after it's over,
they're so great.
Yeah, they're so crying after the movie is over, and I'm like, I'm sorry, ladies, I don't mean to butt in, but I just want you to know it's all gonna be okay. They've all signed up for more movies. They will be back.
Yeah, it's when I went and saw it, and I was working on it, and I saw everyone working on the fight, the opening fight where Hulk just gets owned, and it was just like such a statement, like the brilliance of them putting that set piece in the beginning of the film as an audience member and also as a character animator. I thought they just don't mess around. That just opened like, and it's like Thanos gave Hulk such a butt kicking that he couldn't become Hulk again. He got like emasculated by the beatdown. I thought it was like the storyline. I couldn't believe how brilliant. And these are comic books. I'm like, why didn't I know this? So I loved it. I think it's just the integrity is just marvelous, So and it's great. It's great. It's just like Lord of the Rings. They respect it so much that people will go see it and be excited. So it has to be protected. Yeah. I am very lucky, and we're all very lucky because, like I say, they don't phone it in. They do not phone it in. So no one will be walking away disappointed like like other stuff.
Star Wars, what?
Like it's like Lord of the Rings. When Lord of the Rings came out, it was like they were, Peter Jackson and his wife just respected it so much that you believed little Frodo with his little blue eyes and stuff. And then when you see him sail away to the Grey Havens to die, you're just like, this is heavy stuff. It's great storytelling. That's all it is. We all love the mythology, the cave stories. We still love them.
So I have a question here. We put on our social media stuff that you were coming on, and I don't remember who asked the question. Chris, do you remember?
It was Apgar, Dave Apgar.
I love Dave Apgar, a fine sportsman.
Oh yeah.
He asked us a question, and it's an interesting question. And you can answer it if you want to, or you could just say no comment. He said,
"I love that guy who asked the question, so I'll probably answer it."
He said, "Can you name the top 5 nicknames that you've bestowed upon people through your career?" And that you're the most proud of, and the stories behind them.
Oh, that is pretty funny. That Dave Apgar is a funny guy. He's got huge hands, and he can throw a football like that guy from Kansas City. I forget his name, Mahomes or something. Okay, my five top nicknames. Okay, one of them that comes to mind was a weightlifter. At Disney, and he was very, very small, a very, very petite individual, but he was built like Lou Ferrigno, like so big that I don't know how he did anything with his giant arms. And anyway, I was in the elevator with him at Disney doing Walt Disney's Dinosaur back in the late 90s, and the elevator broke, and I was stuck on the elevator with him. And he's really big, and he's kind of pacing around the elevator. And, we were wondering what was going on. And then they fixed it because it's Disney and they're switched on. And so it was only 38 seconds. And someone goes, I heard you got stuck in the elevator. I go, yeah. They go, who are you stuck in there with? I go, second this little guy, and I started to describe him. I go, Mowgli Schwarzenegger. So Mowgli Schwarzenegger is one of my favorites. And then there's another guy that I knew that I'm going to be vague about, but he got put on some weight, and he was a great competitor, and I knew him, a great guy, and he put on some weight. He had a beard, and it was a very Christ-looking beard, so I nicknamed him Chubby Jesus. And then it just became CJ for short.
CJ.
And then CJ. Nice.
And then there was another one that wasn't like that, these nicknames are silly, but it was a person who put on those come to mind. Those couple come to mind. There are a lot of them, but I mean, I'm kind of like so rocked by the question. I'm so rocked that I can't really even think straight. But maybe, as we chat a little bit longer before I split, a couple more of those will come to mind. But Mowgli Schwarzenegger, okay, there was a guy I worked with who was from Nebraska, and he was a big wide guy, and I nicknamed him the steak fry because he was wide like a steak fry that you get with a steak. And so the steak fry was a favorite. And then there was one guy that had no up and down in his walk, and I nicknamed him the hovercraft no Y guy because he walked with no Y in his walk, so he was just a no Y guy. Silly, stupid. That's a computer geek. And then there was a woman named Fong who worked with me at Weta. And of course, everyone asked if I knew Fong, and I kept saying, "You mean Fong Lambert?" Those are two textures on computers, and that was really stupid. And so I have a lot of. They're not mean spirited. It's just that as an animator, sometimes I'm cursed by my observations because I was the youngest of 6. And I observed a great deal. So I can't draw the people like those great Disney caricature guys that do with the light blue pencils. But I like to, I love imitating people. And people love seeing themselves imitated. But I don't ever want it to be mean-spirited because then it's just like hurts their feelings,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough trying to be a comic, you fail a lot. There's a lot of fails when you're a comic. A lot of fails.
You've had a lot of triumphs too. So.
Yeah,
I have, but my middle name is Failure. I mean, I do these things now because I'm older, right? So someone said to me, "You should go do commercials. You're old and you can sell pills on CNN." I go, "Good idea." So I get an agent and I go on all these auditions for New Lesta, you're dying. Take it. Your eyes are bleeding. Those things that just have the unbelievable, the disclaimers at the end of them. So I've been doing a lot of those auditions, and you never get them. And you go on so many auditions, and it's a lot of failure. But it's always good. It's always good fun, but it's a lot of failure.
Mm-hmm.
But like Wayne Gretzky says, he made 100% of he missed 100% of the shots he didn't take, or something brilliant like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, life is good.
Just keep at it, and you'll get one of those old man commercials.
When you see me selling something that'll make you go blind and get like polio, please take it.
Okay. It doesn't matter what it is. If I see you on the commercial, I'm buying it.
I got one. I got in one where they cast me as Antique Man because I'm such a fossil-looking guy, and I was an Antiques Roadshow. I was an Antiques Roadshow appraiser. So the commercial is called "Be Secure," and it's for Brink Security. And so like I'm like an appraiser, and it's about all these vignettes that happen. Like, I thought this guard dog would protect us. I was sure that I would win the lottery. I was sure that she would win the election. And they cut to mine, and I'm like the little appraiser, and the woman's holding a little rooster or something, and it says "Rooster valued $5." And she goes, "I was sure it'd be worth more." And all I do is a head turn to the camera, and that was my whole spot. So I got in one as an old guy. I'm
sure it was the best head turn.
I'm looking that up.
Turn.
It's real brand. It's real Brando. Real method head turn.
Oh yeah. you're in the head of that antique salesman.
Yeah.
Just know it.
I really bought it.
I'm finding that after we get through. I'm finding that commercial.
It's there's a 30-second one. Our skit was not very funny or very entertaining, so we're in the weaker section of that commercial. They have a 30-second one. You got to find the 60-second one.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And good luck.
Good luck.
Well, since Dave Apgar, since he asked the question of all the nicknames and stuff, I always liked the nickname you had for him.
What was it? Dave Apgar?
It was Future Chubadoo.
I was so on the money. I was so on the money with that because he's Latino and he loves to eat. When I go with that guy, when I go to that guy's house, we are having like food, right? And then we're having like brownie sundaes, and I'm like, we're eating like children. We are gonna die. I leave there with my heart, like massaging my heart. You know, like I can't hang out with 30-year-olds. I forgot that nickname because it's not kind. Yeah. So I kind of blocked it out of my hippocampus region.
But it works. It works. I mean, there was a sandwich restaurant we would go to, Rinaldi's, best sandwiches that you can get, like in LA for my 2 cents at least.
They were great.
And they were great. And he had the whole menu printed out on pieces of paper and attached to the wall next to his desk. And he just went through the whole list, just checking them off as he got each sandwich. So he would make his way through all the lists and have every sandwich that they made there. And yeah, and his goal was for them to have them name a sandwich after himself. I don't know if he accomplished that, but
it's too bad they didn't, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would sit there. He would sit there at his desk and wiggle his little leg, like up and down, like twitching, looking over at the menu with with a little sly grin. And I just thought, this guy loves chow. But yeah, that nickname is it's not a high five one. So yeah, I kind of forgot it. Funny that you brought it up though.
It was fun. It was fun though.
Dave Apgar, you really threw a great curveball there with the Apgar.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're here for. Cutting edge journalism.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, he's the greatest guy. He lives up here. I see him once in a while. Once in a while I see him.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I haven't seen him in a while because Jay's been up there and I'm down in Texas. There's quite a few of you guys up there.
Yeah,
that I know. So
he looks good. Aaron was up here and then he moved to Seattle, which is a lovely town.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He got into games.
This is where the work is. You know, you have to go where the work is. So let's do it. You know.
Yeah.
Luckily it's Vancouver. So, you know, we've got rain now till June. But if you're strong, you can make it through into paradise. The summers up here are beautiful. Just got to be strong like a salamander. You know.
So one last question, and then because gosh, we've been talking for over an hour.
That's ridiculous.
I told you it goes by fast. It goes by fast.
Like therapy.
Yeah. Just think of us as your therapist.
That's what we are.
So, is there a dream project that you would love to work on that you have not got to work on?
Yes, and I won't be working on it.
Well, there you go.
It's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio being shot in London.
Oh,
and that's gonna rival Nightmare, and it's gonna be Guillermo, and the animation's gonna be mind shattering, and the puppets are gonna be mind altering. You know, they're made by a company named McKinnon and Saunders, who are these British guys that make the most beautiful armatures. They came over with the British invasion on Nightmare in the 90s, and whenever we had the pleasure of working with those puppets, same with Fantastic Mr. Fox, that film to me, I felt the same way about Where the Wild Things Are, and then when I saw the end result, I was okay by like not being involved with it. But that was one of my favorites as a kid. But Pinocchio, when those kids turned into donkeys just for like skipping school or whatever they did, they were very innocuous. Their crime, they're eating candy or something. I was like, as a kid, I'm like, okay, you people are gnarly. So I just think that in stop motion with the lighting they're gonna do, that's gonna hurt some minds, So that one. But I've got Glory, and I'm happy, But that one is very distracting.
Yeah, I bet. Well, you've got. You've got a lot of greats under your belt. So
yeah, you're hitting them out of the park.
Yeah, nothing to be ashamed of there.
It's good to be looking like Popeye's dad and still working, even though. Thank you for showing interest in a very innocuous situation, and I appreciate the time, fellas.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome back anytime.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think my life story is boring enough, and I think we don't have to repeat it. But let me know if I can add anything or fix you as you edit it in case some things are lacking and stuff. Don't be afraid to give me a shout out.
Sounds great.
No problem.
All right, I miss you,
so
Tennessee, and nice meeting you two guys.
Nice meeting you too.
I'll miss you too, Buck.
All right, man. I'll see you soon, some sunny day.
All right.
Oh, we'll do.
All right, cheers, fellas.
All right.
See you. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that has been episode 78 of I Am Geek.
Yeah.
That was cool. There will be some editing in this episode,
Oh,
but it was fun.
it was great.
Guys, check out. Really, go on IMDb and check out Stephen Buckley's. On IMDb, Stephen A. Buckley. Check out his list of stuff. He's been in everything that we as geeks love. He's been a part of. So we didn't even mention the Smurfs.
No, I know. And we didn't get to talk about he did his own short film called Milkshake. You might be able to find that online. He kind of toured it around a few places. So if you find that Milkshake,
I heard
Stephen Buckley.
I heard that it brought all the boys to the yard.
That's the wrong one.
Yeah. Kater was already shaking his head, knowing what you were going to say.
It did. I'm sure it brought some boys to the yard.
What?
I've heard it's better than yours.
I think there's a yard in it, and a milkshakes, and some boys. But yeah,
Thanks.
There we go.
Wow.
Anyway, well, thank you, listeners, for joining us again on this journey of I Am Geek. And now we will leave.
Is it over?
No.
Oh. Oh.
This
This
episode.
Okay.
Chapter.
This chapter of I Am Geek. Next week we'll be back with more. It'll be like
another episode.
Yay!
This week's was like, the Fellowship of the Ring. Next week's maybe The Hobbit. I don't know. Like The Hobbit. Just not as good, but still good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
Anyways, so I've got some work to do. Until next time, this has been I Am Geek, and we'll talk at you next week.
Bye-bye.